Welcome back once more to the Unity Crash Course. Let's add a little bit of script to these UI buttons that I just created. I will start with an example script. Let's call it example button. Let's just make this script print out a little message when you press it. I'm going to make a void function, like a public void press me. And I'm just going to say debug log pressed. How about that? Let's now add that script to the button. I'm going to throw it on the button. This is Unity's button script, and it's on there. That comes in by default when you add a button. And here's the example button script that we just created. What we want to do is make it so that when you click the button, it tells this other script that happened. So here in the on click, we're going to say add one, and we get to notify any object we want. We don't have to notify our own object. We can notify a different object. But for this example, I am going to notify my own object, and it is the example button script that I want to communicate with. All the scripts on that object are listed, and when you have the script, you can even access all the different things that you have on that script, and press me is the one that I just created. And as you can see, when I press, I get the message. Let's clear that and watch this again. When I click down, I'm holding the mouse button down now. You can see that, but I haven't gotten my message yet until I release. And let's try it again. I'm going to try this time. I'm going to click outside the button, drag onto the button, and release. That does not count. I'm going to click on the button, drag off the button, and release. That does not count either. So this is an example of a click on release feature. And the reason for that, the reason that's the default, is because that gives the user the opportunity to say, oh no, wait, I didn't mean that. So you can unclick. You can communicate with yourself. You can communicate with any script on any other object simply by referencing that other object. You can even pass arguments in if you want. Let's add a string. Let's print a message when you click the button. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to say, change it to this new press me with a string, and I'm going to say press me on that. And that gives me the possibility now that I can go and add that same functionality to the red and the green buttons. I'm going to add one there. I'm going to send a message to that button, and I want to communicate with the example button, and I'm going to tell it green is my message. And this one, I want to communicate to the button, and I'm going to communicate with example button, and I want to say red. Now when I press the press me button, I get the message, press me, and this entirely different button is going to send a message back to that same object along with the word green, and here's the red button. I am using the TextMeshPro, which comes in by default with 2021. And so I'm gonna recommend we stick with that. First thing you gotta do, let's using it. TM Pro. In my start function, let's grab a hold of the text element so that we don't have to get that every time. It's TextMeshPro. So TextMeshPro UGUI. That's the element that comes in by default, and I'm gonna call it mText. In my start function, I'm gonna grab that. I'm gonna say mText equals get component in children of a TextMeshPro GUI. please. And now I'm going to say if null is not mtext, then mtext.text equals message. Let's have the red and the green button. Yep, the red and the green button are going to call press me again, as they once did. Good. Okay, let's hit the green button and it changes the text to green, and the red button changes the text to red. Let's just say there's all sorts of other things you can do with UI through the script, and we can get very complicated, but this is enough of a crash course, I think, to just get you started up and running. What about buttons where you hold them down? How do we set that up? Like this fire button here. This fire button has on it, we're not using the on click because we don't want it when you release, we want it when you're holding down. So I've got a simple button script on there, and what I'm doing here is using an I pointer down handler and an I pointer up handler. So if you inherit those two interfaces, then you need to implement the on pointer up and the on pointer down function. If you've got those on there, Unity will call those when the pointer is clicked down and when the pointer is then released. And that's really all you need to do it. So I'm just keeping track of whether the button is down or not. When you push the button, I say M is down is true. When you release, M is down is false. And then I just threw some functions on here so that you can query on that. Or you could put a delegate on here or something that you could send a message to, like we do with the on-click button. You could send a message directly to some other object to notify them that the button is down, and whatever you want to do. That should give you enough now to be able to use those basic buttons where you just click and release, and also buttons that you hold down. There's a similar behavior for drag things. There's a drag handler series, so drag begin handler, drag end handler, and drag handler. So those are for UI elements that maybe you drag around on the screen. That should give you enough to get started scripting up those buttons. In the next video, let's take a look at scroll rect, which is a scrollable region of the UI. I'll see you in that one.